Sometimes, life puts us before challenges that seem impossible to overcome. Moments when each day feels like a battle, and each night brings a new worry. That was exactly how Charlotte felt. Charlotte was never one to complain. For as long as she could remember, her life had always been a struggle. A single mother, she worked as a waitress at the Palm, a small and cozy place where she served customers every day with a smile on her face. But what no one knew was that behind that smile, there was a suffocating anguish. Her son, Noah, only 6 years old, was her greatest joy and her greatest concern. He was born with a heart problem, and now, more than ever, he needed urgent surgery. The problem? The money. Charlotte worked tirelessly, took extra shifts, saved every penny, but the cost of the surgery was still far from being reached. At the end of her shift, after serving dozens of customers, her feet ached, her hands were marked from carrying trays, but the real weight was something else, the fear of losing Noah. James, the restaurant manager, knew about the situation. He saw the sparkle in Charlotte's eyes fade day by day. He always tried to help as much as he could, offering extra hours, a better shift, but deep down, he knew what she needed was far more than he could give. And so, day after day, Charlotte followed her routine. Working, fighting, surviving, without knowing that her life was about to change in a way she could never have imagined. That day seemed to be just another ordinary day at the Palm. Charlotte was already used to the routine. Full tables, customers in a hurry, orders coming and going. As always, she maintained a professional posture, serving each person with kindness, even though her heart was heavy. Until suddenly, the buzz in the dining area began to grow. Whispers, discreet glances, some heads turning. That was when the restaurant door opened and a group of men walked in. Among them, a face impossible to ignore, Kanye West. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath for a moment. Some people whispered excitedly, others tried to hide their curiosity. But Charlotte? Charlotte just picked up her notepad and took a deep breath. James, the manager, approached her with a discreet smile. "Charlotte, you're going to wait on that table. Do your best, as always." She just nodded. Her heart sped up for a second, but she quickly got it under control. She needed to stay professional. It was just another customer. With firm steps, she walked to the table where Kanye and his friends were seated. "Good afternoon, gentlemen. Welcome to the Palm. What can I get you today?" Kanye looked up at her and gave a slight smile. His gaze was calm, observant, but there was no arrogance in it. "What do you recommend?" he asked casually. Charlotte knew that menu like no one else. Without hesitation, she answered naturally. "If you like steak, our grilled filet with special sauce is one of the most requested. But if you prefer something lighter, we have a wonderful shrimp risotto." Kanye smiled. "I'll go with the filet then. I want to see if it's really all that." The other men laughed and placed their orders. Charlotte wrote everything down calmly, keeping her composure, showing no nervousness. For her, it didn't matter if the customer was a millionaire or an ordinary person. Her job was to serve well. And that's what she did. As she walked back to the counter, she felt some looks upon her. The other employees talked. Some seemed impressed, others, like Emma, did not hide a hint of envy. But Charlotte didn't care. She just wanted to finish her shift. Little did she know that this particular table would change her life forever. Kanye West savored his meal slowly. He seemed relaxed, enjoying the moment. Charlotte, always attentive, passed discreetly by the table to make sure everything was perfect. "Everything okay, gentlemen? Do you need anything else?" she asked with a professional smile. Kanye looked at her and nodded. "Everything's perfect. Thank you." She walked away, letting them finish their meal. For her, it was just another table. Another client. But Kanye watched her differently. He noticed something in Charlotte's eyes, something she tried to hide. There was a genuine kindness in her manner, but also a fatigue, a silent sadness. He didn't know her story. He didn't know her struggle. But for some reason, he felt he wanted to do something for her. When they finished the meal, Kanye asked for the check. Charlotte brought the bill with a smile, and he took it without looking much at the amount. He just took out his wallet, pulled out a wad of cash, and placed it on the table, along with a napkin on which he quickly wrote a few words. He got up, put on his sunglasses, and before leaving, looked at Charlotte one last time and said simply, "Thank you for the excellent service." Then he left. Charlotte, not understanding, went to clear the check and clean the table. When she picked up the napkin, she saw something handwritten. "May God bless you and your family." She frowned, surprised. And then she saw the money. Her fingers trembled as she counted the bills. Her heart raced. She counted once, then again. It couldn't be right. It was an absurd tip. Almost the total amount for Noah's surgery. For a moment, the world around her went silent. The restaurant, the voices, the sound of dishes, everything disappeared. Her eyes filled with tears. She blinked a few times, trying to pull herself together. She needed to thank him. She needed to speak to him before it was too late. With her heart pounding, Charlotte ran toward the restaurant exit. She looked around, searching for Kanye in the busy street. He was already getting into his car. "Mr. West," she shouted, her voice choked with emotion. He stopped, turned around, and saw Charlotte running toward him. Without thinking, she held the note with both hands, pressing it against her chest, and looked at him with eyes shining with emotion. I don't even know what to say. Thank you. Really, you have no idea what this means to me." Kanye gave a slight smile, put his hands in his pockets, and replied simply, "Sometimes we don't realize the impact we can have on someone's life." Charlotte felt a lump in her throat. She wanted to say more, wanted to explain how that money was more than just a tip. It was hope. It was life. But the words wouldn't come. Kanye waved to her and got into the car. The vehicle drove off, leaving Charlotte there, standing on the sidewalk, clutching the note as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Behind her, the entire restaurant watched the scene in silence. Customers, employees, everyone seemed to understand that something extraordinary had just happened. But not everyone was happy. As Charlotte went back inside, still in shock, Emma crossed her arms and huffed, visibly annoyed. Unbelievable. So many people work hard here, and she's the one who gets all that? Envy was already starting to take root. But Charlotte didn't hear. She couldn't hear. Her heart was too busy overflowing with gratitude. Charlotte was still in shock. Her hands were clutching the note as if it were a talisman. Her heart was pounding. That amount, it was almost unbelievable. After so long struggling, that money could save Noah. She returned behind the counter, trying to process everything. But before she could even take a deep breath, she heard a venomous comment. "Funny, right? A bunch of people working hard here, and you're the one who gets all that money?" The voice came from Emma, who stood with her arms crossed, eyes narrowed in envy. Charlotte turned slowly, still trying to compose herself from the emotion. "What?" Emma took a step forward, her voice loaded with resentment. "You heard me. I'm saying this is unfair. We all work hard here. We all need money. But you're the one who got all that luck." Some employees stopped to watch. The restaurant was still busy, but a silent tension began to spread among the coworkers. Charlotte took a deep breath. She didn't want to fight. She didn't want to turn that moment of gratitude into something bitter. "Emma, I understand how you feel." "Really? Do you?" Emma let out a dry laugh. "I doubt it. Have you ever stopped to think why he chose you?" Charlotte hesitated. Maybe Kanye noticed something in her? Maybe somehow he saw her hidden pain behind the professional smile? Emma continued, now not hiding her bitter tone. "You didn't even do anything special. You just served a plate of food and he gave you all that money. Meanwhile, I'm here working just as hard as you are and no one's ever given me anything." James, the manager, who was nearby, noticed the situation and approached. "Emma, that's enough." But Charlotte raised a hand, asking him to let it be. She wanted to solve this the right way. So she looked into Emma's eyes and said calmly, "I didn't ask for this, Emma. I wasn't expecting it. But it happened. You're right, we all work hard. But today it happened to me. Tomorrow it could be you. The world turns. Emma was silent for a moment. She looked like she wanted to retort, but something in Charlotte's calm tone made her hesitate. James crossed his arms and added, "Charlotte has always done everything with dedication. She's always treated everyone with respect. And if anyone deserves this, it's her." Emma lowered her eyes, feeling the weight of her own words. She murmured, as if not knowing how to continue. Charlotte smiled slightly. "I know. We all have difficult days." Emma sighed and, without saying anything else, went back to her station. The atmosphere was still a bit tense, but Charlotte chose not to hold a grudge. She knew envy did not come from hatred, but from frustration. And she knew that, deep down, Emma wasn't a bad person, just someone who, like her, was also struggling. James gently patted Charlotte's shoulder and smiled. "You handled that well." Charlotte just nodded, still holding the note. That money was still not enough to pay for everything, but it was enough to give her hope. And at that moment, that was all she needed. Charlotte left the restaurant that night with her heart racing. Kanye's note was still in her hands, and the money was safe in her purse, as if it were a dream about to vanish. She drove to the hospital where Noah was admitted. On the back seat, a small backpack with some of her son's clothes and toys. But more than that, she carried hope. For the first time in a long while, she felt that everything could work out. When she entered the hospital room, she found Noah asleep. His small chest rose and fell slowly, tired from the daily battle against his own heart. Charlotte approached the bed and held his tiny, fragile hand. "My love, Mommy did it. Your surgery is going to happen." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time, they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of relief. The next morning, she made the payment to the hospital. There was still a small amount left to cover post-operative costs, but that was already a victory. The procedure was scheduled for the following day. And then came the hardest part. The waiting. Charlotte sat there, fingers intertwined, leg nervously tapping the floor. James, who had come to the hospital to support her, was by her side. "He's going to be fine, Charlotte," he said, trying to comfort her. But the hours seemed to drag on. Every time a nurse passed down the corridor, her heart jumped in her chest. Until finally, the doctor appeared. Charlotte jumped to her feet, feeling cold hands and a churning stomach. "Doctor, so?" The man smiled. A tired, but genuine smile. The surgery was a success. The world stopped. Charlotte blinked a few times, trying to absorb those words. He's okay? He still needs observation, but yes, he's fine. Now it's just a matter of recovery." Charlotte brought her hands to her face and, unable to contain herself, cried. But this time, they were tears of joy. James placed a hand on her shoulder, visibly moved. "You did it, Charlotte." She took a deep breath and looked at Noah through the ICU window. He was there, lying down, still sedated, but alive. It was at that moment that something unbelievable happened. One of the restaurant customers who had been there the day Kanye left the tip had recorded the moment and posted it on social media. The story went viral. In a few hours, thousands of people were sharing, commenting, and getting emotional with Charlotte and Noah's story. This is the true meaning of generosity. A mother who never gave up. A gesture that changed everything. Kanye West, you made history with this act. The news reached Kanye. And when he saw the impact, he made a decision that would change everything once again. Her phone vibrates by her side. She frowns, picks it up, and looks at the unknown number on the screen. Her heart races. "Hello?" The voice on the other end is deep, but friendly. "Charlotte? This is Kanye West." For a moment, Charlotte thinks she misheard. Her chest tightens, and she swallows hard. "Hi. Mr. West? I saw your story. I saw what happened with your son." Kanye's voice is sincere. "And I want to help more." Charlotte feels her breath catch. I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. It's all taken care of. From now on, all of Noah's medical expenses are covered. And more, I'm setting up a financial fund for the two of you." You'll never have to go through this alone again. The phone almost slips from her hand. This? Are you serious? Very serious. Charlotte's world spins. She closes her eyes for a moment, trying to hold back tears. The weight she had carried for so long vanishes. Kanye, I don't know how to thank you. He laughs on the other side of the line. Just take care of your son. And when you can, pay this kindness forward. Charlotte smiles, wiping her eyes. I promise I will. When she hangs up, she presses her hand to her chest, taking a deep breath. She looks at Noah, sleeping peacefully, and feels an immense love overflowing inside her. The second miracle had happened. The news traveled the world. Charlotte and Noah's story, along with Kanye's, touched millions of people. The recording at the restaurant, the note, the moment when Kanye changed their lives, it all spread like wildfire on the internet. Newspapers, TV shows, influencers, everyone was talking about that act of kindness. People from different parts of the world commented, moved. This story restored my faith in humanity. The world needs more people like Kanye and more mothers like Charlotte. If everyone helped just a little, imagine how many lives could be saved. But for Charlotte, none of that mattered more than what was before her eyes, her son, breathing calmly, his little heart beating strong and healthy. Noah was saved. She left the hospital a few days later, holding her son's hand as he laughed, feeling the sun on his face for the first time after the surgery. She knew that from then on, life would never be the same. At the Palm restaurant, things changed too. Customers came back, wanting to meet the waitress from the story. Some people left generous tips, inspired by Kanye's gesture. James smiled whenever he saw Charlotte working, now without that burden in her eyes. And Emma? Emma changed. The envy she had at first gave way to admiration. One day, while Charlotte was setting tables, Emma approached her, a bit embarrassed. I never really congratulated you. You deserve all this. Charlotte smiled lightly and, without hesitation, opened her arms for a hug. Emma, surprised, hugged her back. We all have our hard times, Emma. But there's always room for change. And so, life went on. One night, Charlotte was at home, after putting Noah to sleep. She sat at the kitchen table and took out the note Kanye had left at the restaurant. She ran her fingers over the handwritten words. May God bless you and your family. She smiled, feeling a lump in her throat. Who could have imagined? A simple meal, a simple gesture, and her life had changed completely. She looked at Noah, sleeping peacefully on the couch, and realized something. Miracles do happen. And sometimes, they come from where we least expect. So, what did you think of Kanye West's attitude? Leave your opinion in the comments.